Hey guys, welcome back. Alright, so this is going to be a longer video, but we're going to go over, I guess, what I would call a mini restoration or fixer-up. So I bought this car maybe a month and a half ago or so, and it's a 10th anniversary, 44,000 miles. Unfortunately, it had been kind of sitting for a while, so had a lot of little problems. We've probably made like 100 different improvements or repairs on this car. I'm going to go over, probably not all of it, but a good amount. Show you what we've done and what we've left with, and we'll see how we go after this. But let me show you the car. So it's basically a stock 10th anniversary. It's got the 15x9 nickel 6UL wheels. Probably about the only mod I can think of. So here's the interior. It's kind of not well lit. Sorry about that. It's in decent shape. Carpet's got a little bit of stains on the driver's side. If we get up in here, I got some floor mats coming. The factory 10th anniversary floor mats are in. They need to be dyed or something. They look real faded, so we're going to put some aftermarket Tux mats in here. But let's see on our gauge cluster. So this actually looks pretty nice. We took this apart. We changed out the green sleeves. We polished the clear plastic on here, which you can hardly tell there's even plastic on it now. Those little chrome things fell off when we took it apart, so we fixed that. The display where the mileage goes was damaged. We replaced that panel as well, but we preserved the mileage because we only changed the display, not the EEPROM or computer behind it. So we got our gauge cluster going well. Other than that, the interior has basically just been cleaned. I've got a shifter boot ordered. Actually, this one cleaned up decent, but hasn't come in yet. We did a repair, so classic 99 issues, the hinges break. So we put a metal piano hinge, which works great. No problems there. Kind of nice. Managed to keep the stock console, at least for now. The 10th anniversary shifter was in bad shape. I found this old 5-speed shifter and cleaned it up, and for now we're running that. Interior wise, it's got a roll bar. I guess that's another modification. It does have the hard dog, hard bar, hard top roll bar. And then we changed the soft top, which this isn't showing up on camera very well. We'll try that. But the frame, if you look, it's all painted. So this was in poor condition, rusty, old. So we ended up cleaning all that and painting it as well. Quite a bit of work. Actually, I'm way underselling it, how much work that was, getting the top put on this car. But it was definitely needed a top. And it looks a million times better with a new top. We got a canvas one. It's got the zipper glass with the defrost. Basically all the options from Robbins. Giant pain to install. The instructions are horrible, so don't recommend. But it needed a top really bad. So we got that done eventually. Alright, let's the interior, just to kind of sum that up. So we just went around cleaning everything, fixing it up. There was some little issues, like the cruise control didn't work. It turned out to be the clutch switch. The fog lights don't work. We still got to fix that. The wheel was in terrible shape. Don't see the old one, but I put my 99 wheel that I had rewrapped the leather on. I put that on here. And like I said, just a ton of cleaning, and that's about all I can think of on the inside right now. Let's go under the hood. Alright, so here's the under hood. So we're not quite perfect. The only thing I can mention right now is I believe it has a tiny coolant leak. We come over here to the reservoir. See how the green is, it's kind of right on the line, but I think it's leaking. I think I had it slightly above the line, so I've had to top that thing off 2 or 3 times. Anyway, that's the only issue that I know of. Let's go over what we did. So this thing looked terrible when I bought it. Really dirty. I don't think the engine bay had ever been cleaned as long as the vehicle was owned. That's what it looked like. And it's a little dirty now because we've been driving it, but we had this thing pretty well detailed. So when we bought it, it had 2001 coil packs wired in because likely the 99 coils had failed. And they were done kind of okay, but it was more functional than beautiful. So we ended up putting a 99 setup back on here. So we ordered, you know, the wires, the plugs, a coil pack. And if you look back here, you'll see we had to wire in, the old pigtails were gone, so we had to wire these in. And we replaced it, and we put labels on it so you don't get them mixed up in the future. It had a bad valve cover gasket leak, so we pulled the valve cover. We cleaned it. It was all dirty. Like I said, it had been leaking oil, and we cleaned it up real nice. Actually looks pretty good. New gasket. The rear, common problem on Miatas, but back here where my finger's touching, there's a little freeze plug type cap that goes there, separate from the valve cover, but that was leaking. We replaced it. that got, I believe all the oil leaks are fixed at that point. So cooling system, which is kind of frustrating because I think it has a leak, but we changed almost everything. So we replaced the radiator. We bought every hose for the entire vehicle from Mazda, replaced all of those. We didn't change the heater core, but there's no evidence that it leaks. And I kind of want to say I changed the water pump, but I really didn't. But it only has like 5,000 miles. It had a Mazda water pump put on it about 4,000 or 5,000 miles ago when they did the timing belt. So I checked everything. The timing belt was timed correctly. I almost pulled it down anyway and just redid it, but I decided to leave it knowing that, in all truthfulness, this motor's probably going to come apart to get built in the next year or two, so it's not going to go out of miles or anything. So we called that for that. Basically went around scrubbing. So like, you know, if you zoom into like these areas, there's a little bit of dust from driving it on the road, but generally these areas are clean. Like we snuck little brushes and went all over the place, like these little seams and stuff. You know, we tried to get in all the nooks and crannies, scrub the wiring harnesses, just clean it up real nice. Try to get this thing restored pretty well. Let's see, so another problem we had was the air conditioning did not work. Which is weird, I just assumed it was out of Freon. Probably had an AC compressor leak, it's a real common issue. That wasn't the issue, it actually had Freon. Kind of blew me away. So what could it be? Well, it took us admittedly 8 hours to diagnose this. This is like the longest I've ever taken to diagnose something like this. It ended up being a broken electrical wire. So we had went through the car trying to figure it out on our own. Like, so here's the pressure switch, we jumpered the pressure switch, that didn't work. Inside there's another, it's down in here, you can't really see it. There's an evaporator under here, and somewhere up in there there's an electrical plug. It's there's a thermistor that goes in the evaporator to measure the core temp, and then there's this thing called an amplifier that reads that signal and basically makes or breaks a circuit that goes with the pressure switch that feeds signals to the ECU to tell it if it's safe to turn the AC compressor on or off. We swapped it, that didn't seem to fix it. We started doing continuity tests on wires, voltage checks on wires, blah, blah, blah. We got the factory service manual, and it's like 3 pages of diagnostics to troubleshoot the AC. And we got all the way to the end where it says, well, if you didn't find the problem, just try again. But, you know, we did that a second time, still didn't find the problem. Then we said, okay, what if the troubleshooting diagram is wrong? What if they missed something? So I pulled the wiring diagrams, I started going through those. And it turns out there was a single wire that wasn't called out in the troubleshooting to test, which is this green wire going back to the ECU. They don't call out a continuity test for that. So I continuity tested it and it did not pass. And I even doubted myself at first, but eventually I was like, okay, it doesn't seem to have continuity. And I started pulling, and when I started pulling on this harness, it pulled the wire out of here. And I had a broken wire in my harness. Once I knew that, we took this apart, we repaired the broken wire. Now we have AC. Actually seems to work. It's hard to judge, it's not 100 degrees yet, but it seems to work fine. So time will tell. I will say the fan in the cabin works pretty well. I guess being a low mileage car, it hasn't got a ton of use. So anyway, seems good. As far as like fluids, you know, brake fluid, clutch fluid, basically all the fluid, every fluid, transmission, differential, motor oil, everything got replaced. So this motor had not had an oil change in a long time. Let's see if I can get this cap. Hold on. Okay. So if you look in here, it looks kind of dirty because it is. We've already done our first oil change and the oil's already turned black again. So this motor must not have had a lot of oil changes in its life. Kind of unfortunate, but what can you do? But it's some nasty black oil, so we did an oil change. We put a Mazda filter on it. Our plan is we're going to put, I don't know, 500 to 1,000 miles, and we're going to change the oil again. I've got some, I forget what it is, but some cheap oil. So basically we're going to do 500 to 1,000 miles, change the oil, do it again, and we're probably just going to keep doing that until the oil looks good, because I don't like having dirty oil in a motor. So that's in progress. Once it's looking good, I've got some real nice high-end synthetic oil that'll be going in it. But for now, it's getting cheap oil just to clean it out. Another thing we did was the headlights. They actually weren't horrible, but they were not clear. These things are clear now. Look at that. They look like, probably not new, but damn, they look pretty good. So we restored those. Only took a couple hours. The kit we bought worked really nice, so that was cool. Another common thing, we replaced the serpentine belts. You know, always do that. It actually had them replaced, but again, they're old, so just for age, we did that. Let's see. So, some things we found. This car has like, I think it has 2 or 3 brake calipers that are dragging. So one of them was dragging, I think it was this one over here, the driver's side front. And we pulled it apart and took the piston out of the caliper, and it actually had rust on the outside and the inside that was causing the piston to like drag. And so we cleaned it all. I didn't have a rebuild kit for it, so I just cleaned it up, put it back together, and it mostly fixed the issue. But that side over there seems okay, but both back brakes seem to drag a little. So I have a brake caliper rebuild kit for all 4 wheels is ordered. So we'll be doing that. Another thing, so the car needed an alignment big time. It kind of drove straight, but it was really, really darty. And this is kind of weird, but like when you turn the wheel, if you let go, normally they'd come back to center. It would just stay there. It would never come back to center. You'd have to like turn left and then turn to go straight. It was really weird. Turns out that's due to, what is it? Not Ackerman. Anyway, caster. Is that it? I forget. Maybe it's caster. I'm getting stuff mixed up. The camber was kind of weird. I think it's the caster. It didn't have enough caster. And then the toe, it was towed out a bit on the front. It was like towed out a 16th on the front, towed in a 16th on the rear. So we did a DIY alignment, which I probably need to go check it. I think I did it right. It took some effort, but I basically maxed out the caster, and I put the front and the rears all to 1 degree of camber. The front is basically towed dead straight, and the back is towed in, I believe, a 16th toe in. It drives way better. The steering wheel centers. The only thing is that I don't have the wheel. It's like when you go straight, it's slightly turned to the left. I got to fix that. Haven't done that yet, but we will. But yeah, generally drives really nice now as far as that goes. The transmission, when we changed the trans fluid, we put in the it's called unicorn tears. Let me show you what that is. It's this it's a common one for the Mazdas. Here it is. This stuff. Motorcraft full synthetic manual transmission fluid. They call it unicorn tears. It's badass. We put that in there. This car does have a little bit of a notchy transmission, which is actually common on 6-speeds. So I'm hoping that over time it's going to get better. We'll see. The trans fluid was really dirty, or well, like I thought it had been recently changed, but it doesn't appear to be the case. It looked pretty dirty. Had some metal on the magnet. So the diff oil looked cleaner than the trans, which is kind of weird, but these things do have like shifter boots. It does have a short throw, the common bill at Miata Roadster short shifter. It has that. So maybe it had a torn boot and dirt got in the trans years ago. I don't know. All the boots and stuff have since been replaced. So we got some new clean trans fluid in there, along with the diff. Hopefully it starts shifting better, because it really doesn't shift fantastic. My old 6-speed, I used to have a Mazda Speed 6-speed, and it definitely shifted better than this. So we'll see. Hopefully that gets better. I have heard that, like, if it has the wrong oil or old oil, sometimes it takes a little while before that new fluid really starts to work. Just a little quick thing, but these doors had some aftermarket bushings, which are supposed to like stiffen the chassis, but for whatever reason, it made the doors really hard to close. So we just put the stock bushings in, and that pretty much solved that problem. One area I didn't think about, let's go to the trunk, show you what we did back there. So it's missing, let me move these bags out of the way. So underneath the carpet, there's supposed to be like a tire and some piece of material. That piece of material is missing. So the carpet's here. Anyway, that other piece is missing. We got to get that. But what we did do, we took all this apart. So if you look in here, see how clean this is? We pulled the gaskets, we pulled the carpets, the little trays, we pulled the battery. We pulled it down to the sheet metal back here. We pulled the tail lights out as well. And we just pressure washed this entire area. It was actually pretty dirty. kind of surprising. We even reached up in, I'll try to get a camera in here. Yeah, we reached up in there. Those were pretty dirty. We cleaned out those as much as we could. And then we took out like soap and water and scrubbed it. And then took rags and compressed air and dried it. Make sure there was no residual moisture like in the seams between the metal, stuff like that. And then vacuumed the carpets, cleaned all the little plastic pieces, cleaned the battery. Which, oh yeah, there's the battery. Yeah, you see what I mean? Look how nice that looks. So, got her all cleaned up. Yeah, you can see. So, it's all clean. We put all that back together. Didn't really have to do that. Could have just cleaned the carpets and it would have looked the same. But this is my car and I care about it, and I really don't like having dirty stuff like that when I know I could fix it. So, that's all clean. It even smells better, you know. So, that was a nice improvement. We got our new plates. Oh yeah, another thing we did. So this car, when I got it, the catalytic converter, I can probably show you. Let's see. Yeah, here's the cat. Here's the old one. Have no fear. I put a good cat on the car. But you see that? Let me tell you what I think happened, or let me tell you what happened and what I think happened. So this car would throw catalyst inefficiency codes every once in a while when the previous owner had it. He said it hadn't done it in a while, but it also had the rear O2 sensors had spacers on them. And so the way, just a quick little 10-second summary, motors burn fuel using air, and whenever the exhaust comes out of the motor, there's a little bit of fuel left and there's a little bit of air. Catalytic converters heat up enough to cause the fuel to burn, and when it comes out, there's some of the oxygen gets consumed because there was oxygen here and it gets burned and it goes out and there's less oxygen. And when there's less oxygen, O2 sensors, O2 is oxygen, they're oxygen sensors is what they are. They're not really air-fuel ratio sensors, they're oxygen sensors. So they sense that there's less oxygen coming out than there was going in. And that's how they know the catalytic converter works. But if you look at this catalytic converter, see all that discoloration? So what I think happened was, at some point the coil packs failed on this car and it dumped a bunch of raw air and fuel into the cat, and the cat just like thermally died, because you could actually see the heat colors. It's like in the middle it got so hot it burned all the coatings off, and then you can actually see like this layer, and then that layer of like different color for temperature. So that's what I think happened. I think that cat, even though it was low mileage, it was destroyed by a failed coil pack years ago. So we got rid of the, we basically restored this back to federal emission standards. We got a brand new CARB certified catalytic converter, welded it in, it's TIG welded. We got rid of those spacers on the O2s, put it back like it's supposed to be. Haven't had a problem since. Emissions looks good. We did have, the only issue that I could really think of, the OBD2 port. Y'all can probably imagine what that looks like. But the OBD2 port was throwing, it wouldn't work when I went to get it inspected. So we ended up wiring in a new OBD2. I think the little plugs were just loose, so we changed that out. And yeah, she passes emissions, runs really good, no check engine lights. Man, what else? So one thing I could think of, so this car has a howling sound, like when you drive it, it sounds like a wheel bearing maybe, but I can't really tell. It's probably the front, but I'm not sure. So I ordered wheel bearings for all four corners. Also, like when we did the brake caliper rebuild, I got more parts like wheel bearings and probably some other stuff I forgot about. So we're going to do probably the front wheel bearings first and see if that fixes it, because I really don't want to mess with the backs if I don't have to. But anyway, we're going to do the wheel bearings. Hopefully that gets that going. Our fog lights don't work. I think we're going to fix that. Someone on a Miata Turbo actually posted a link of how to do that, to put aftermarket fogs, because the stock ones, I tried to change the bulbs, and basically when I went to twist the bulb out of the back, the whole back of the light just broke off in my hand. So, and then I Googled it, and people say the stock ones suck, so hopefully we can just get some better ones in there. So yeah, tons of work, lots of little stuff. Like, you know, we didn't mention all the little stuff, but like just to give you an example, I'll show you real quick. Something that's can be neglected on a car. Open the fuel lid, look in here. See what this looks like? It's clean. There's no leaves, there's no like mold, there's no dirt. This little drain hole, I flushed it out and cleaned it really well, so water drains through there nicely. That's why it's wet. I just took this car out of the rain, so it's wet in there, but there's no puddle of water. Drain works fine. So lots of little stuff like that. Just going through, you know, like for example in the interior, everywhere that it was feasible, instead of just cleaning, we actually took it apart. I haven't done the air vents. If you look in the air vents, they're still dirty. But like we pulled all kinds of stuff that we could. We just took it apart and cleaned it and scrubbed it and then put it back to really try to get it clean. Like up in here, we tried to clean like in between where the doors go. We pulled these off and cleaned them. So our pedals, we changed out the little rubber piece that goes on the pedals. That dead pedal, we unbolted it and cleaned the carpet and put it back and scrubbed it really good. So whole bunch of stuff like that. Just even that little guy, cleaned it pretty well, not perfect. But yeah, just a whole bunch of work trying to get the car in good shape. So it's not perfect. There's still some work to do. This isn't going to be like a museum piece. It's not going to be this perfectly restored, perfectly perfect, you know, we're going to drive this thing. So it's not a museum piece, but it is a pretty nice car. And it's going to be in pretty good condition. And one thing I'm pretty sure of is this thing needs a turbo. Man, I think it might have picked up a few horsepower just from like replacing the cat and doing a tune-up and all that kind of stuff. Like all your common, you know, air filters, PCV valves, spark plugs. We did all the normal stuff. It runs fine, but man, these things are gutless up top. Even in second gear, it's like, it just makes noise. I mean, they're slow. Oh, I'm not used to it. So to me, a 300 horse Miata at the wheels, that feels slow. So when I drove this, it feels broken. So we probably are going to turbo it. There's a lot of cool things you could do, but we're probably going to end up with a turbo because one of my big things is reliability. And I'm pretty sure I could build, I've been building, my first turbo setup was on the silver car. I was driving it around turbocharged in 2008. So that was 15 years ago. And by now, I know how to turbo a Miata to where it's pretty reliable. So we're probably going to build like a badass, reliable setup. Got some ideas for how we're going to do that. Might be a couple unique things that y'all haven't seen before, but we'll save that for another one. Anyway, I know this has been a long video. Appreciate you guys sticking around. For those of you that wanted to get a big update. This car, we didn't film a lot of the work. It's kind of boring, but I did want to do a summary of just what all was done. So if you guys have any questions, let me know, and hope you guys enjoyed this. And until next time, y'all take it easy.